Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Maria, and on this channel, we talk about all things spirituality, energy, universe, mysteries. Yeah, welcome. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the topic of assemblage point. I may have spoken about this a time or a dozen on my podcast. However, it is an extremely rich topic. So new information always comes through and I feel compelled to share with you. Okay, there's a lot to talk about, in regards to the assemblage point. First things first, let's maybe cover the basics. So the assemblage point is a fancy way of saying point of view. Essentially, each of us has a perspective. We are a unique being. We have a unique set of challenges, a unique set of vibrations. And we all have a default setting, if that makes sense. So it's almost like when you get into the car and turn on the radio, there's that default frequency that it tends to be on, which is your favorite radio station. So our bodies are essentially radio devices, and we are all tuned into a particular radio station, if you will. Each of our radio stations that we're tuned into both determines what we're going to emanate out into the world, as well as the things that we're going to be taking into our vicinity as well. So similar to the law of attraction, you become what you think about because that attracts your reality. Now, because you are a frequency or a radio station, it determines so much more than just what you attract or emanate. You're, anything from the sets of thoughts you're having on a daily basis, the types of feelings you have on a daily basis, vibrations, energy movements. Everything is determined by essentially your assemblage point. We tend to have a default assemblage point as beings, but it doesn't mean that it is a fixed assemblage point. In other words, as you go through life, you're going to be moving from stage to stage to stage, especially if you are a person who is doing a lot of personal work, a lot of development. Arguably, if you made it to this channel, I'm assuming you are one of these people. So the simplest way to think of assemblage point and the different levels you can be going through is in the context of chakras. So essentially, your assemblage point could be attached to one of your chakras, or it can be in the vicinity of one of the chakras. And so essentially we can use the colors of the rainbow as we're talking about the assemblage point. The reason I love this so much is because understanding your own assemblage point and understanding where you are on that journey can really help you pinpoint what are the upcoming lessons as well as the current lessons for you. And so right now, I will quickly take you through the 7 major assemblage points and would provide a framework of how you should think about it. And hopefully you are going to start perceiving yourself and recognizing yourself in one of them. Like I said, I've made at least a couple of episodes on the podcast. So I think that if you are curious about the topic of the assemblage point, you should definitely go and listen to an episode on conversations with my higher self, just because that information is almost like prep work for this, if that makes sense. And in general, I think that I'm going to offer like the broadening of the perspective. And so everything is always layered, right? There's like one layer you can learn, and then there's more and more and more. And so today we're hopefully taking this up a notch. So your assemblage point, the first one essentially that you could have on this plan is in your root center, in your red center. Conceptually, this is all about survival. Now, this is nothing new if you know what the chakras are all about. So this is all about survival. This is all about, how safe certain things are. This is all about putting bread on the table, having rent money, etc., etc. In terms of the element, this corresponds to the element of water. Oh, sorry. Earth. This is earth. If you think about it, the first chakra is called the root chakra. The roots of the tree are always below the ground, so they are in the earth. So as far as vibrations are concerned, Earth is the densest form of energy. That means that in your body, these energies, if you have this assemblage point, they're the heaviest of energies. Now, of course, if this is your assemblage point, if this is your perspective on the world, you're not going to think that this is somehow heavy. But it tends to be the assemblage point with, where human beings would have the densest foods. All of you meat eaters are essentially here. Nothing wrong with that. It's just a state of consciousness. It's life is not black and white. Life just is, right? Your assemblage point just exists, right? It's a part of your journey. It's a beautiful part. But of course, it's going to be the densest form of energy. It is also, as we're looking at the evolution of souls, this is the part where souls spend a lot of time. So as you go up the chakral pillar, right, you become lighter as you move towards the top. And energies move faster. Whereas if you go down, the energies are denser and the movement is slower. So when you come into a particular incarnation, you already have a propensity to go up to a particular level of consciousness. And I think thinking of the assemblage point as a level of consciousness is a very good proxy. So we all start at the root center when we're babies. And then we can go up one by one, up until we hit our ceiling. Each of you has your own personal ceiling of, your vibrations, meaning if your soul has never been at a particular level or floor, it's going to be very hard for you to just align with that quickly. So you're going to have to work at aligning with that. In other words, at soul level, you almost have a predefined top limit, right? So we all start at the very bottom, and then we go to our predefined top limit. And the whole purpose of evolution is that over many different incarnations, your top limit goes higher and higher, right? So essentially, eventually over time, you would be able to encompass all 7 perspectives within that one life or any life, right? Does that mean that you're fully perfectly ascended? No, there's always new layers. But as far as this reality is concerned, you cannot go that much higher than the crown center in terms of your perspective. So you always start at the red. When you're a baby, right, it's all about survival. So think about the first 4 years of your life, right? It's all about, am I fed? Do I know where my parents are? It's all about feeling protected and safe, being with your family. Kids have obviously separation anxiety when their parent is not around. They feel like they're going to be left. And, it's all of these survival things that are coming to the forefront. So that's the red center. Now, some people, if that is their ceiling, they would stay in that center for the rest of their life. Nothing wrong with that. It's just a state, right? And over time, they're going to open up other centers. Moving up, the next assemblage point, the next default radio station you can be tuned into is the sacral center. That is your center of pleasure. Here, we're making a very fundamental flip in terms of the element. So we started in the element of earth, and now we're moving up, and we're moving into the territory of water. Water encompasses 3 chakras. It starts in the sacral. So your solar plexus is actually the water territory. And then it's your heart. So it's a pretty lengthy journey, actually, with these 3 assemblage points. It may take many, many, many incarnations for people to master that journey. So sacral, right, is that transition from the dense energies of earth into slightly less dense energies of water. So you join into the elements of water. That means that your body overall is becoming lighter. So people with this assemblage point are starting to crave lighter foods. That maybe is not all the way fruit and vegetables, but slightly lighter. Like these are the people like, maybe I'm not going to go red meat, maybe I'm going to go fish or chicken, if you know what I mean. But the center is all about pleasure. And this is also the first center that realizes, that they are like a creative power almost. It's a center of creativity. All the arts are in here. So this is somebody that understands that they're not just a cog in the wheel. There's more to life than, going through the motions, right? So this is, when the kid is starting to paint, to dance, going into all kinds of activities, right? This is also when individuality starts coming to the center. People at this level stop seeming similar to one another and start having some fairly sophisticated identity. And again, nothing wrong with being in the root center. It's just when everything is all about survival and safety, there's a lot of common ground there. And because of that, beings that have an assemblage point at the root center are not that different from one another. You start getting a lot of differentiation in the sacral. And then you move up. It's still in the water territory. So when we're moving in the same element, as far as your assemblage point is concerned, the transition is not as dramatic. The transition is not as drastic. Once you move between the different elements is when that transition becomes actually really hard sometimes, when it's a big, big shift. Here, we're not necessarily having that big of a shift. So when you're moving from sacral up, you're moving from the zone of creativity and pleasure seeking. Like, oh, I like the food that make me feel good. Or I like to, play and just in general, like feel good is like a very, very big driver for this assemblage point. These are your hedonists. Again, nothing like some people are going to only be here during a certain stage of their childhood when they want to play all the time. And then there are going to be some people that, they just stay in the sacral for the entirety of their life. And again, this is that bohemian artist archetype. When you just want to create art for the sake of art. These are also the people that don't necessarily care too much about money. Like money is not a value here. From the perspective of some folks, it could feel like these people are not very motivated or somehow don't like plug into the society very well. It's because this is a very individualistic center. It's all about, these are my creations and, my muse is telling me what I should paint, write about, etc., etc. Quite a fun center. Now you're moving on to solar plexus, and that is where a lot of humanity is. That is the go, go, go mentality. All of your type A's are over here. Despite the fact that the solar plexus is associated with the sun, the energies of the solar plexus are actually water. And I don't mean to confuse you too much. We're still in the water territory. But I just felt like it's important to point it out. It's kind of like the fire-water energies. Do you know like the Scorpio? Scorpio, the sign, is supposed to be a water sign, but it's also kind of like a fiery water. So that's your solar plexus. So it's all about achievement. So the first chakra is survival. The second one is pleasure. The third one, if I were to just give one word to define it, would be achievement. So these are all of the people that want to go places, that like goal setting, that like getting the golden star on their fridge for, all kinds of happenings, right? These are the people that love having a career and like moving up and getting promoted. These are the people that want the nice house, like want the money. They are very active. They're very social. But they also are, they're okay with conflict. These are little feisty fighters also are in here. So this, while it's all about achievement, it's also all about individuality. This chakra is a little bit like me versus them, but but there's like a big divide between you and them, right? And so you would do things, and like what really motivates you is to go ahead, to get ahead in life, right? So everybody who, wants to become rich, build a big company, succeed, become famous, they're all in the solar plexus arena. Then you're moving up. Again, we're still staying in the realm of water. And the next assemblage point is your heart space. So you would perceive the world from your heart space. If I were to put a frequency or word to it, that is where you unlock love, right? Love is also all about your relationships with others, right? It's a very feminine place of being. It's an all-encompassing place as well. It's all about not me versus them, but how can I have me and them? How can I find middle ground? It's diplomacy. It's compassion. It is listening, not just talking. It's the exchange. It's the give and take. It's the being the receptive aspect. Sometimes it's also the self-sacrificial aspect, right? So there's a lot about the energy of the heart that is really, really beautiful. It's hearts are all about unity. It's at this level of perspective that you perceive yourself as one with nature, one with everything on this planet. So that is the first chakra when you start experiencing true oneness. Everything before that was it was a lot more individualized. And here, it's like truly a bridge into like higher states of consciousness. Now, one thing I will tell you is all of the assemblage points that we have discussed is what I would call being inside the system or being inside the matrix. I mean, granted, we're all inside the matrix anyhow, but being inside the system and playing by the rules of the system are your first 4 assemblage points. What do I mean by that? Yes, obviously, it's a very different level of consciousness when you are, I don't know, like somebody who seeks pleasure as opposed to somebody who loves nature so much that they're like a nature activist. Those are very different states of consciousness, but each are the ways that you can play within the system. And each are a part of the matrix. So it's almost like the matrix expects you to play one of the 4 assemblage points. Of course, the pinnacle of it is the heart center. So the heart center is really lauded as that, oh my God, like you need to get there. And if we are being honest, the majority of humanity is not at the heart center right now. The majority of humanity is somewhere between the first 3 centers. That is the truth. So even being at the heart space is highly unlikely and unusual these days. Being at the heart space in terms of your assemblage point is a very serene, peaceful, calm state of existence. It's very loving. It's like, for those people that have experienced it, it's being communicative, communicating with the elementals. It's starting to become spiritual. It's, Christ consciousness starts right here, which is not to say that all Christians are here, but Christ consciousness is that unity consciousness. Love for self also starts here. It's a beautiful, beautiful center. And then we're moving up. And that is where things get so complicated for humanity because hardly anyone is up there yet. Now we're in the process, in the period of massive upgrades. So more and more people are actually changing and having their default assemblage point in higher chakras. And so that's why I felt it's actually quite interesting to go up and tell you what else is possible. When you start your spiritual journey, the first big one is opening the heart, right? And then the higher heart, which is pink, and the lower heart is green. So it's all about those energies. And actually the entirety of Christianity, and I'm not saying that Christianity has anything to do with spirituality, because Christianity is an organized religion. But one of the greatest teachings of Jesus, for instance, is, love another, right? The way you love yourself. Sometimes, it has to start with loving yourself also. There's a lot of lack of self-love on this planet, but obviously Jesus preached love. And that tends to be that entry point into the higher consciousness. But make no mistake, when you are in the heart space, when your assemblage point is in the heart space, you're still very much part of the system. And now we upgrade. So what happens after an assemblage point in the heart chakra? You get to the assemblage point in the throat chakra. That is when the game truly begins, you guys. Everything else prior to that is the prep work for the game. Assemblage in your throat takes you from the energies of water into the energies of air. There are 2 chakras that live in the air energies of air. Your Vishuddha, your throat, and your Ajna, your third eye. And that is significantly different than being in any of the lower chakras. So once you graduate to Vishuddha, a couple of things happen. First, Vishuddha, throat space. The only way you can make a jump, actually a quantum leap, from the heart space to the throat area is by taking on responsibility. The defining chakra for your assemblage point here is responsibility. So you're moving from a frequency of love to a frequency of responsibility. And that is what most people don't freaking want to do. Because why? Why on earth would you want to move from the beautiful energies of love, where everything is perfect and the world is full of butterflies, into a world of responsibility? And most people are not going to want to do that. Because here is massive, massive self-work. Over here is a massive, massive work at the collective level. Planetary work starts here. Vishuddha is not just a center of communication. Vishuddha is a center of karma. It is also the center of your personal life path. Vishuddha is actually your doorway into your personal North Star. It is your entry point into higher states of consciousness. So your throat area, you cannot even get there until and unless you are able to take responsibility. What I mean by that is it's not just responsibility for your life or your kids or what have you, but it's taking on the right amount of responsibility that you're meant to be carrying based on your mission and your life path. Obviously, your higher self plans your incarnation prior to you coming here. Because of that, you're always on track towards something, whether you realize this or not. Very often, hefty missions come with a hefty dose of responsibility. A lot of you have come here with planetary missions. Now, of course, our planetary missions are the things that we are in a state of resistance towards very often. Why? Because if it was easy, it would not be a mission. If it was easy, you would have already, in theory, have done it in the past. But very often, our missions are bringing us into a new territory, into a territory that we have never been before at soul level. And that is why taking on responsibility from the center of your throat space is actually so uncommon. Because you know that you're going to have to carry the entirety of the load that your higher self intended for you to. And again, it's not a very comfortable jump to make because it's so comfortable in the heart space that a lot of people in spirituality stay there. And that is one of the bigger traps. Just because those energies are so nice and so comfortable, most people just choose to stay there. But I'm telling you, the way towards your growth and your evolution is through your throat space. And that means accepting responsibility. Now, once you flip elements from water to air, a few things change. First, how your body feels really changes. The higher up you go, you need less and less food, actually, and you need food that's less and less dense. So anybody at the Vishuddha level is not going to have animal products. Like, this and up is vegans. I just hate to say this, but it's true. This and up is people with no alcohol. This and up are people who are on a path of integrating God consciousness. In fact, I will tell you that there are 3 chakras that are considered God chakras in our body. And those are throat, third eye, and crown. So when we're talking about awakening the God and Goddess within, we're really talking about shifting our vibrations closer to one of the three highest chakras. And this is called like the God loop, actually, in your body. God or Goddess. So once you flip from Anahata to the throat, assemblage point, default setting, you would actually become like an air being instead of a water being. So how you perceive your energy is going to shift. Prior, it feels like, your energy would feel a certain way. You would wake up in the morning, if you're well rested, you would feel like your energy is at 100%, right? But we don't think of it as a particular kind of energy, and it's almost like we're at 100% water. And so when you're switching from Anahata to Vishuddha, all of a sudden that container of energy that you are turns from water to air. And so essentially your body is going to have to readjust and is going to have to get really good at switching things up. And now it needs to get really good at filling itself up with air frequencies, right? Air moves a lot faster. So once you achieve this level of consciousness, everything is going to start moving 10 times faster, 100 times faster, 1,000 times faster. So manifestation is faster. Aligning to your perfect outcomes is faster. You also actually unlock the collective level. So if everything below the throat is actually you being inside of the system, these two chakras, third eye and throat, is above the system. So it's almost like if the system was water and earth, imagine that you would almost like rise up from the waters, go up. And so you're able to look down on the waters and see everything with immense clarity. But you're not part of the system. You are above the system. So these two chakras give you actually really, really good vantage point and opportunity to see what's going on at the collective level. Because it's actually extremely hard to tell what's going on at the collective level when you're so ingrained and so much in the trenches that you don't know anything really, right? You don't have that ability to separate yourself from the system, to move yourself a little bit away, to start seeing the light. That is not the perspective that is available to you. It starts becoming available once your assemblage point moves to the throat area. So again, this is all about accepting responsibility. Very often for enough of you that are meant to operate at this level of the assemblage point, it's going to be planetary responsibility, or at least group level responsibility of some sort. Could be country, could be community, could be planet Earth. For some of you, it may even be a galactic mission across the Milky Way. There are a few people, more than a few, that have galactic missions here. Now, moving on to Ajna. Very few people have the assemblage point in this area. This is where your consciousness starts literally merging with the lowest level of the Akashic records. Akashic records, for those of you that don't know, is an informational field. Everything that ever happened in the history of planet Earth and, the galaxy always gets recorded into the Akashic records. The Akashic records is a database that actually exists both within the matrix and outside of the matrix. It is almost like a filter between the two worlds. So when your assemblage point moves to the third eye, your consciousness essentially merges with the bottom level of the Akashic records, which is the planetary level. So essentially, you're so above the system, but you're also so automatically ingrained into the Akashic records that it's actually at that level, it becomes really hard to separate who you are from like the system. Like your system, you start to get system thinking. So it's actually very hard for you to perceive yourself as an individualistic being. And that still happens here, right? Here, it's like your mission, your karma. Like, why am I here? You know, the me, kind of. Over here, it's collective consciousness. It's the we. It is the I, but it's also the we, if that makes sense. And because it's the we, you're perceived as part of the system. That's why you have full clearance into merging with Akashic record field. So it is somebody who's not just clairvoyant or clairaudience. It's like clear knowing right away because you're part of everything that happens in real time. And that is characterized by one word, which is alignment. I think that, and again, alignment is like, it's a very rich territory. You know, we often associate alignment with, you know, some type of ephemeral thing similar to enlightenment. There's not like a lot of understanding of what alignment truly means. And there are many definitions of alignment. One way to think of alignment is your chakras being aligned across or alongside the vertical axis of your, you know, spine, essentially. That's one way to get alignment. But the perception from the ajna center, your third eye, is alignment with the universe. So it's the acting in accordance with the universe. It's like the do no harm type of situation. But the reason you are not doing any harm is because you are everything and everything is you. And you're so ingrained and intertwined into the fabric of existence that you cannot hurt another without hurting yourself. And it's like alignment with everything that is, as well as source consciousness. You are extremely in alignment with source consciousness once you are in your ajna center. And the last one, but not least, is when we're once again moving elements. So the moment your assemblage point moves from the ajna to the crown center, actually crown starts over here, about an inch above your head, you're moving from the element of air into the element of fire. The element of fire is the highest frequency element. It's essentially sacred flames, right? It's heavenly fire. Source is essentially sacred fire, if you think about it. It's the emanation, you know. Sun is a projection of source. So again, fire energies. Over here, the word and the concept that defines it is creation. Not to be mistaken with creativity of the sacral center. Because creativity in the sacral is creating from within the constraints of the matrix. It's almost like taking the parts that already exist and rearranging them in a different way. That's the creation from the sacral, from your second chakra, from the orange. Here, it's creation of something from nothing. For people or beings with an assemblage point in the crown center, time-space reality ceases to have its like that system no longer has their claws sunk into somebody's consciousness. So that is the full disassociation, actually. It doesn't mean that you cannot exist from within the matrix, but you are almost outside of the system while being inside of the system. Over here, there are very few constraints in this assemblage point. Here is the aspect of, you know, I don't know, walking on water, changing the weather, levitation, you know, all the things that you would potentially perceive as magical, you know, and then we can keep going, like, because like there are layers even within each center, right? It could be teleportation over here. It could be telepathy. I mean, what is telepathy? Telepathy is not even that hard, to be honest. Here, you would not even be constrained by your body. Very often people, you know, with the crown center, they don't need to consume physical food. You know, very often they are not constrained by the matrix. Like they can go in and out. They can travel between planets. So it's a pretty cool, very rare, obviously, on planet Earth, type of assemblage point, because most beings that achieve this level of perception find it really hard to be anchored into this reality, or don't find it very useful, frankly, unless there is a very big, big, big mission that keeps them here. So it's kind of fascinating. Yeah. And again, the more up you move, the faster you become. So for somebody whose assemblage point is in the crown center, they would be able to actually rewrite whole chunks of the matrix, including some of the rules of the matrix, because that is true God consciousness, right? So the ascension of God consciousness within starts in your throat area, moves to the third eye, and culminates here in your crown. And that is where the world's your oyster. The matrix is your oyster, right? That is where, depending on your level of access, because the different souls have different levels of access, you could really start messing around with what is and isn't possible for you from within the matrix. You can jump off a cliff and decide that gravity is not relevant for you, right? I'm not saying that you should try that. Don't try that, actually. Because it's, what are the odds, right? That you are at the level of the crown center. But all I'm saying is it is essentially as close as one can get as an incarnated human to experiencing the God consciousness within and the God powers within, powers of true creation. Now, if you're meant to, if you're meant to do planetary work, right? Or even if you're not, let's just take it a little broader. If you're the one that works on yourself, chances are over time, right? The more parts work you do, the more shadow work you do, the more meditations you do, the more energy work you do, etc., etc., etc. The more you stay on your path, your assemblage point is going to naturally go up. I don't find it particularly useful to try and force it, because you cannot force true evolution. In fact, for people that are trying to force it, you have to be careful what you wish for, because too rapid of movement, between the centers when your body is not ready is actually a recipe for disaster. It's like a quick way to lose sanity. I mean it, right? So the beauty of this journey through the arc of the colors of the rainbow is the fact that it is not instant. It's not meant to be immediate. It's meant to be a journey. And there is inherent value in all of these points across the continuum and, in all of these destinations. And so wherever you are, you're perfect. It is perfect. Actually, the question that I'm getting from the collective right now is, how do I know what is my assemblage point? There's actually a few diagnostics that you could do. You can close your eyes and imagine that there are 7 empty jars in front of you, glass jars. And the first one represents the red center, the second one represents the orange, the third one the yellow, the fourth one the green, the fifth one the blue, the sixth one is the third eye, so it's violet, and the 7th one is crown or white. You would want to ask the universe to show you your assemblage point, and you would see what of the jars is being filled up with a color. So if you're seeing the yellow one being filled up, that means that is where your assemblage point, right? If it's the blue, then that's your assemblage point. It's in the throat area. So that is one way to tell. You can also just imagine your own light body if this didn't work. You can imagine your light body, and you could imagine all of your 7 chakras, right? And you would want to activate all of your 7 chakras. And then you would want to you can ask the sun to light up the chakra that is your assemblage point. And so you would notice that the sun rays hit or enter into one particular chakra. And that is the chakra that is your assemblage point. So it's almost like where the sun rays go. The whatever is the chakra that the sun has selected is the sun is the chakra where your assemblage point is. You can obviously also use the pendulum. I mean, duh. There are many, many, many ways. Or you can talk to your guides as well. But the pendulum is easy if you don't see. I'm getting the question from the collective, like, how do you work with a pendulum? Hold on. Let's see. I have a pendulum here. I got this one in Peru. I love this. I love this guy so much. It's silver. And it cost a fortune, but I love it. So it's like a pendulum. Sorry. Right? So essentially the way you would get a pendulum, this is not an episode on pendulums, but since you guys asked, essentially you would tune your pendulum to your own body, right? So like the way I work with my pendulum is show me a yes. For my pendulum, the yes is always clockwise. And show me a no is always counterclockwise. So the way you would, once your pendulum is tuned up, you can essentially take a piece of paper and create 7 circles in there, or just like write down the 7 chakras. And then you would just ask the universe what your assemblage point is and, see where your pendulum wants to go. So the pendulum is actually a very easy way for any type of diagnostics if you haven't really used it before. I think you should. The pendulums are awesome. You can use your body as a pendulum as well. So your body is actually really naturally good at giving you yes or no answers. So this, like when you do like this, 2 fingers, if I say a statement that's true, then there's going to be strength in my body. For instance, my name is Maria. And you see, like when I try to pull these fingers apart, I cannot pull them apart because it's the truth. But if I say a lie, then my body knows it's a lie. And then I'm not going to be able to hold these fingers together. Sorry, my cat is making an appearance. Hi, baby. For instance, my name is Catherine. You see? I'm definitely not a Catherine, you guys. That's how you know I didn't lie to you about my name. Another way to know, so for instance, you would be like, my assemblage point is in the yellow center. You see? Like my certainly is not. So my body's like, no, Maria, your assemblage point is not in the yellow center. So that's another way to do a diagnostics. And then there's another one where you can use the weight of your full body. So you would stand and you would make a statement like, my assemblage point is in the yellow. If your body naturally falls forward, it's a yes. If your body naturally wants to fall backward or withdraw, it's a no. So that's how you can use your body as a pendulum. I hope that was helpful. This is also kind of somehow like a really, really long video. I really apologize, or maybe I shouldn't, and I hope you enjoy it, and you're awesome. Let me know what your assemblage point is at. And also, if you've recently gone through like a shift in frequencies, I would love to hear your perspective. I personally I'm going through like a pretty big upgrade in terms of assemblage point currently. It is brutal, you guys. It took me out of commission for about a week. Like bad, including like physical discomfort. I was like, I don't recognize my body. This is like some weird stuff. So if you have any crazy stories about your assemblage point flipping, let me know. Yeah, but I hope that this was helpful. Sending you so much love, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.